welcome to NPS Now, your source for news and information about Norfolk Public Schools. I'm your host, Karen Tanner, and with us today are two very special guests. We have Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Melinda J. Boone, and Carrie Purcell, who's a Senior Executive with Focus Schools, and we're going to discuss this special partnership with Norfolk Public Schools. So welcome to you both to NPS Now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, and also I want to start with you, Carrie.
Okay.
Glad to have you here, but first, what exactly is Focus Schools and how do you help our school district?
Sure. So Focus Schools is actually comprised of former practitioners. We could have been teacher, principal, central office leaders who have done turnaround work across the country. And we've come together to partner with schools just like NPS and other districts across the country to think differently about teaching and learning with the goal of improving the lives of students that we serve.
And so, Dr. Boone, how did this partnership come about? How did you hear about them, and why was it important for us to partner with them?
When I arrived in Norfolk, we had a number of turnaround partners supporting the district, and it seemed like a very fragmented approach to how we would address turnaround because each partner had a different mindset and they were working with schools. As part of our Norfolk Public Schools redesign, we started focusing on a full district turnaround. Even schools that had met full accreditation still had room for improvement. And so we sought out an RFP to find a turnaround partner that had the expertise in the field and also could support district turnaround. And I was familiar with the work of Focus Schools, and so as I'm not part of the vetting process, and the team came and let me know that Focus Schools had risen to the top.
And tell us, Carrie, what's some of the work that you've done on the district level with our administrators here?
At central office specifically, we're working with executive directors, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and other various leaders of learning to help them to come together for one common cause, and that's to make sure that we're providing direct support to schools that are in turn providing supports to their student with the ultimate goal of raising achievement for all students that walk through the doors of our schools.
And your organization was helpful with our redesign to talk about the theory of action, Dr. Boone. So what's at the heart of our theory of action, and why is it important for the entire school system to embrace it?
Theory of action is our commitment to the community, to our students, to our faculty, and to ourselves, that each and every day we will focus on the best of teaching and learning for all of our students. And we will also focus on having an efficiently run organization that supports teaching and learning. You know, often people think that if you're not a teacher, you're not a building administrator, or someone in the instructional realm, that they don't have a role in improving student achievement. The theory of action dispels that myth because it says everyone, no matter your role or responsibility, has input into achieving greater results with students. So what happens in finance makes a difference. If principals can spend less time looking for purchasing information and having their budgets aligned, that's time then they can support the instructional program. When facilities make sure that our buildings are clean, they are running well, the systems are running, and when breakdowns or issues occur, we address them quickly, then the learning environment is ready for our students. So the theory of action exemplifies that everybody has a role, and we all step in to do it together to advance student achievement.
And this is for both of you. What did it take to develop this theory of action?
A lot of hard work, right? And a lot of conversations, looking at data, being transparent, being vulnerable, taking the mirror off of ourselves as adult leaders and really looking at what's best for the children. It also took, I think, this idea of engaging a lot of voices in the conversation. So it wasn't a top-down decision, but rather a collective decision based on a lot of those factors that I just described.
Carrie, how often are you meeting with the administrators on the district level?
We meet a full day every month formally, and then there's a lot of coaching, phone calls, behind-the-scenes conversation to make sure the work keeps going in between those formal monthly visits.
And so what do those meetings entail?
the monthly meetings. So we structure the meetings as such where we start by looking at data, asking ourselves what's working, what's not working, and what are we going to do about both. And then we do a little bit of research dive, what does good practice say, and then we apply that to what does that mean for our next step. So it's all about continuing to work smarter, not harder, because this work is hard enough as it is. So how can we streamline our support so that we're all moving in the same direction?
And if I can also add, the district leadership team is the cross-function and responsibility team that Carrie and Focus Schools work with. And that includes folks from academic affairs and all of the student support departments, but it's also all of our operations departments, finance, facilities, athletics, you name it. We brought together a cross-section of people to help us think through this work. And that theory of action also began our cultural shift, if you will, in terms of how we think about delivering on instruction in Norfolk Public Schools. So it's more than just the sign that you see or the placards that we've developed. It really is how we think about our jobs each and every day, and that's where the culture shift is occurring.
So Focus Schools, you help us with our summer institutes and our mid-year institutes for administrators. What goes on at these institutes and why is it beneficial for this work?
Everyone's voice matters and counts. Everyone in the organization matters and counts, and the Summer and Mid-Year Leadership Institute offer folks the opportunity to share their voice, to share their expertise, to share their practices, to problem solve together. We have heard people say for the first time ever, I was able to sit across the table from somebody who I got emails from, but I didn't get to dialogue with them.
Face
so it's
with the
building,
name.
right, it's building that community of learners so that, as Dr. Boone said, we all realize the important role that we play in the bigger picture.
And why do you feel it's important, Dr. Boone?
We have to model at central office what we're asking schools to accomplish. And so just as schools have instructional leadership teams, we have a district leadership team. And we focus on the data, as Carrie said, and all of the work. But it's also a way for us to check in, to make sure we're doing the things that we've said we've done. We have great time when we all get together. We learn together, we play together, we eat together, we learn together. And that's important. But we also have to make sure what happens once we leave that setting. And so having a summer institute helps connect the school year that just ended with the new school year, and mid-year makes us pay attention to whether or not we're doing all the things that we said we were going to do. So it's important for us to walk the talk and, again, bring everybody to the table that has a role in teaching and learning.
How do you feel the work is progressing?
We're very pleased with the work that we're seeing. And we know it's becoming part of the culture when teachers and others can begin to talk about it. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of making sure everyone in the organization is familiar with it. But you can go into departments, you can go into schools, and you will see folks talking about their SMART-E goals. What are the things that they want to move the lever on in terms of progress this year? And we see it happening in schools. And we also see, as Carrie has indicated, that collaboration between central office and schools. So we're no longer thought about, at least in most instances, as the ivory tower, and that we never leave the tower and go to where the real work happens. But rather now we're all at the same table. And so we're taking down those silos, and that's the evidence of what's happening. The time that central office is spending together, as well as the time the central office spends with the schools. When I meet with principals, when I'm out and about in schools, I hear folks saying it's really different.
Well, this has been so informative for our audience, so we're going to have you come back. So we're going to have folks to stay tuned for more NPS Now. Welcome back to NPS Now. We're continuing our conversation about Focus Schools, and joining us now is Jacqueline Chavis. She's the interim Chief Academic Officer and Executive Director of Elementary Schools. Welcome to NPS Now.
Thank you.
We've had a great conversation with Carrie and Dr. Boone, so we're going to continue the conversation now. So, Carrie, I'm going to come back to you. In the first segment, we talked about the work being done on the district level, but what does that look like on the school level, and who are you meeting with, and what's actually being discussed?
Sure. So it's a multi-level approach. We meet with principal and their instructional leadership team around a framework for improving teaching and learning in schools, and that framework consists of 7 sort of pillars. In the end, those pillars help schools to use data to get focused on what matters most for the kids that walk through their door every single day.
And Jacqueline, what have you noticed from these meetings on the district level and the impression that it's had on the school staff?
The teachers have been very excited about the opportunity to be around the table with the decision-making aspects that are happening as part of that instructional leadership team. So it's no more of the teachers being directed or given guidance on, so here's what we're going to do next. They're actually around the table making those decisions. So they have been most appreciative of that. It's also created a level of collaboration across the schools and within schools that has not, I think, been at this level most recent.
And so, Carrie, on the school and district level, you've encouraged teams to come up with SMARTY goals. So I'm going to need you to discuss what are SMARTY goals and how do they lead to school improvement for Norfolk Public Schools?
Sure. So we describe SMARTY goals as the end in mind. So if the world were perfect, where would we want everyone to be? Most traditionally, people write SMART goals, but we added the word, or the letter, E, because we believe a goal should be for everyone every day. And so we help schools use data to set these yearly goals, and then to backwards map how we're going to help kids get there.
So, Jacqueline, how important is this, and how is it beneficial for everyone to set these SMARTY goals?
Well, in addition to the schools, we as district leadership team members have also set goals. And so that helps us to keep the main thing the main thing. We set those goals for a reason, and so that helps us to keep focused on the work that we believe is most important and most impactful with the work that has to happen, not just at the school level, but with us as district leadership team members as well.
Yes.
Give us an example of what some of those SMARTY goals are on a school or district level.
Well, for our executive director team, we have decided that we wanted to make sure that we were spending appropriate amount of time and time that we believe needs to be voted to the schools. And so we've decided that we want to spend at least 70 to 75% of our time on work that directly impacts the schools. So it's being in schools, perhaps rescheduling or not being a part of meetings that are not really related to the work that needs to happen to support our principals, or to do that work a little differently. And so we've vowed to that this school year we'll have a greater focus to make sure we're involved in that instructional work to be supportive of our schools and principals.
So how is the theory of action being implemented on the school level?
Well, I think most recently, if we talk about a team that's been developed from the CAP level that actually goes into the schools, our TOAST team, and that's really a support team that's developed of CAP members, our district leadership team members who visit schools and meet with principals to hear the principal's voice of, here's what we're doing around our instructional focus, around the improvement work in our schools, and here's how we could use your support. So it would be, let's say, someone from operations around that table, HR, human resources, academic affairs. It could be our folks from child nutrition around the table. And so we're there modeling that it is about all of us coming together to do the work that happens and needs to happen on behalf of our students.
And so, Carrie, do you provide individual training or professional development and coaching for our principals?
Yes, for a select group of principals who've been identified for a variety of reasons of needing and wanting coaching support, we do go in between instructional leadership team PD sessions to provide just-in-time coaching at the school level for the principal and his or her leadership team based on what their specific needs or opportunities are.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, what does that look like, so to speak? It could be a myriad of things.
It's driven by what the principal believes that his or her school needs, and then we design our coaching opportunities around that. So they set a goal, and then we provide support to help them achieve that goal.
Yeah, and this question is for both of you. Give an example of the kind of growth that you've seen in the school since you started this process.
I think, as I mentioned before, there's a greater level of collaboration across the schools. So not just within a particular school, but principals are not hesitant now to call each other to say, hey, I noticed that you have a similar SMART goal, or your instructional focus of your school is very much like mine. What are you doing? Or arranging time to visit each other. So that really also embraces the idea that it's about all of us coming together. So it's no more, principals thinking that in isolation, that it's all about what they have to do, and that they're supported in this work even by their colleagues. And I think that's been a tremendous part of the work that has been happening.
And Carrie, what progress have you seen since the start of this process?
There's a level of risk-taking that didn't exist at the onset of this partnership, and by that I mean people are willing to look at data in a strategic manner, to celebrate small wins and to plan for opportunities. And when we first started the partnership, it was all about waiting until the SOLs came out. And now we're creating opportunities to celebrate small wins along the way with culture, academic, social, emotional, the whole gamut. And that's very exciting to see.
And so Jacqueline, what kind of feedback are you receiving from the principals and the teachers about this training?
The feedback has been very positive, to the standpoint of principals are requesting additional time with members from focus schools to be able to come into their buildings to offer that support. And the teachers are really, again, happy to be around the table, such that many of them in schools have requested to be a part of the monthly meetings that are had. And so principals are rotating teachers from their schools into our monthly meetings with focus schools because that request is happening. So the energy is there. We want to continue that momentum. I think even the relationship that our schools have now with our central office staff, they really do see central office as a support system. I think, as mentioned before by our superintendent, it's no longer that we're sitting in the building, barking out instructions, that we're there with you to make this work happen, because it really is about the children, what we need to do on their behalf.
And this discussion about focus schools is so important. I'm glad we had it on the school level. We had Dr. Boone first, and so we want you to just thank you for coming on the show today. And so we're going to just take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with a discussion with Carrie and Dr. Boone again about focus schools. Stay tuned for more NPS Now. Welcome back to the final session and discussion with Dr. Boone and Carrie Purcell about focus schools. What do you both see as the next steps in this process? You can start, Dr. Boone.
One of the things we've learned very clearly in the work with focus schools is designed to help us think about our thinking, organize our thoughts in a way that we drive forward. And focus schools supports us in making sure that we're thinking about all aspects of what could be possibilities. And their goal is to make sure that they aren't here forever. Their goal is to help us build our capacity to do the work ourselves in a meaningful way as they begin to step away from us. So our next steps is, again, figuring out, I think, what areas we're already strengthening in, and what are the areas that they can gradually release from, and what are the areas that we need some more attention.
So what do you think our next steps are?
I would agree with Dr. Boone. When we started this partnership, our promise was that we were going to work ourselves out of a job day one. So it's about finding talent and empowering that talent to take themselves to the very next level in support of the kids. So our job is always thinking about, what do we release now? Where do we pull back? How do we bring this person from the district in? That's just the way we do business.
So how does this fit with the district's vision with Norfolk Public Schools, with focus schools?
Norfolk Public Schools' vision is to address the needs of a proudly diverse community and making sure that each and every student has the best educational opportunity possible. This allows us to focus on every school. We aren't just focusing on schools that haven't met accreditation. We're focusing on schools that have been successful, because every school still has room to grow. And as a district, again, we can't put it all on the backs of the principals in the schools. We have a responsibility in supporting that work, and so that's how it's important to us.
So Carrie, where do you think we are in the process and the timeline you think we have to work with so far?
I think that you're right where you should be, right where it's comfortable, but right where it's challenging, right? We're stretching ourselves, moving in a new direction, reculturing a system, rethinking our purpose and our priorities. And clearly we believe that more than 80% of the staff that work for NPS come to work every day believing that their job is to make sure that they're making the lives of children better and more promising.
So how do you think we're progressing compared to other school districts that you've worked with?
You know, it's interesting, we were talking about that earlier as a team, and we really believe that NPS is on the cutting edge, and we believe that the reason that is happening is because the central office departments realize that they're part of the puzzle, they're part of the problem, they're part of the solution, and they're part of the action. And that is unheard of in districts of this size. So I think NPS should stand proud, knowing that the best is yet to come for these kiddos.
What's your team's ultimate goal for Norfolk Public Schools?
To make sure that 100% of the students graduate college, career, military, and life ready, to create students who are confident in themselves and the opportunities that lie ahead for them.
What do you feel about the progress?
I'm excited about the progress. We know in education, we can't turn districts around on a dime. And there's always this desire to do quick things to get quick results. But for me as an educational leader, it's important, one, to know that students are learning, not just to pass the test, but they are learning the deeper content knowledge to be successful in future classes and in post-secondary, post-high school work and life options. It's important that we don't just focus on the test, because if we do what we are supposed to do with quality core teaching, the test results will happen. But we cannot push our students to be these robots, these widgets, just about passing tests. Listen, even the Virginia Department of Education and the state board recognized in listening to colleges and universities and business leaders that we had great test takers in this state, but we didn't necessarily have students that were ready to engage in learning career fields and being successful in those. That's our responsibility, to make sure we're closing that gap between what they know and need to be able to demonstrate they are doing and how they demonstrate it, but not focusing on the test. It doesn't mean that as superintendent I take the eye off of that, or our principals, anyone else in the district takes their eyes off of what's going on. But it is about that quality teaching that leads to exemplary learning and great results.
I agree. And Carrie, what's the one important thing that you want people to understand about this important work that you're doing with Norfolk Schools?
Well, that everything we're doing goes back to the children, right? And that change takes time. Change is a 3 to 5 year process. And in fact, we probably will never arrive, but at the end of this, sort of 5-year partnership, we're going to be better off than we were when we started, because we're going to have a different look, a different intent, a different heart and mind that we bring to this work, because it all goes back to, is this good for the students that we serve?
Exactly. And for you, Dr. Boone, what's the one important thing that you want people to understand about our work that we're doing with Focus Schools, with Norfolk Schools?
The redesign work that is supported in our partnership by Focus Schools and that is embraced by our educational leaders and everyone who touches the life of a student each and every day. It's so important that at the end of the day, we want to make sure our students have had the best opportunities, that their future is not limited by poor educational opportunities, but it only is expanded by great opening and options because they are so well prepared. And at the end of the day, that this community takes great pride in this public school system and what it does to drive economic development and community pride in this city.
Exactly. And I want to thank you both for coming on the show today and talking with us about Focus Schools and sharing this information for not only staff, but for teachers, parents, and our business community and stakeholders, so they'll know exactly the work that we're doing here and how important this relationship is with Norfolk Schools, with Focus Schools. So thank you both for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having
us. Yeah, and you're so welcome.
We want to thank you for watching NPS Now. It airs weekly on WNPS, Channel 47, or you can view us online at www.npsk12.com. If you have any great story ideas or information you'd like to share, email us at nps_news@npsk12.com. Again, we want to thank you for watching NPS Now.